Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 976 of the Juicebox Podcast. I am back with another type 2 story. Today is with Nanci. Nanci had gestational diabetes with, I think, her second pregnancy. She's a type 2 now, has been for quite some time. And this story is, I think it's lovely. I think it's an honest portrayal of what it might be like to live with type 2 diabetes. And it offers some real insight into things that maybe could have been done differently for Nanci, but things you could definitely implement now. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. Save 40% by using the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout at CozyEarth.com. I am wearing my Cozy Earth joggers right now, and I put brand new Cozy Earth sheets on my bed yesterday, and I got in them and I thought, this is how it's supposed to be. Save 40% off your entire purchase at CozyEarth.com when you use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the blood glucose meter that my daughter uses, and one that I think you should check out, whether you have prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, or type 1 diabetes, because it is so incredibly awesome and accurate. The Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter. Learn more. Get started today. Buy right now online. Find out about the second chance test strips. The whole thing. All that stuff you can learn at my link, contournext.com/juicebox. Today's show is also sponsored by Touched by Type 1. Now, right now, today is August 8th, so that means in just a little over a month, touchedbytype1.org, programs tab, annual conference, in just over a month, I will be speaking at the Touched by Type 1 annual conference. It's a free conference for individuals of all ages and backgrounds. The goal of this conference is to educate, encourage, and empower all lives touched with type 1 diabetes, whether you have type 1 or just a connection to someone who does. The annual conference provides a unique opportunity to be surrounded by the nation's top experts related to thriving despite diabetes. And I feel weird saying that because I'm going to be one of those people. Come see me speak on September 16th at the Rosen Shingle Creek, Orlando, Florida location. Come on, touchedbytype1.org. It's free. And Jenny's going to be there. Go register now. What are you doing? Let's pack that place.
My name is Nanci, with an I, not a Y. Almost 58. I'll be 58 at the end of the month. And I am a type 2 diabetic, along with a myriad of other things.
Oh, that's going to make a great conversation. Thank you for having health issues and coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So you're 57, almost 58.
Mm-hmm.
When did you learn that you had type 2?
So I had gestational diabetes with my second pregnancy. And after I had my second daughter, it was strange because I didn't know what gestational diabetes was. Like, I felt like no one ever explained it to me. No one around me had ever had it. I never had read about it. I mean, I just didn't know what it was. And mostly I felt like when I would go for my checkups, they would, kind of berate me about how much weight I was gaining and that my blood sugar levels weren't good. And I really still think back to then and am just so surprised at how little I knew and how little I was told about it.
Nanci, let me ask you a question before you go any farther. Is there any chance that in your spare time you torture puppies?
No. It's...
What is that noise?
I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry.
It's my dog, / my daughter's dog.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a poodle and she's extremely needy.
And she's outside of the room.
Yeah,
What would happen if you let her in?
I'm gonna let her in.
Yeah.
Hopefully she'll behave.
Let's see what happens.
Because she really doesn't like being out there. I'm so sorry.
No, right now it just sounds like you're breaking a law of humanity while you're talking.
Yeah, she's pretty good at that, to be honest. Her name is Luna. She's a little white poodle, and she is 11 years old and probably the most needy dog on the planet.
Well, let her in. Let's see what happens to Luna when she comes in. By the way, around here the moon was amazing last night. Something called a strawberry moon. I don't know if it.
Yes. And yesterday we were talking about how she was even more needy, and someone said, "Oh, there's a full moon and dogs get a little bit more," and I had never heard that before.
Really?
So there you go.
Is she in?
She's in.
Let me tell you a story. My mom and dad owned a poodle that they loved very much. And then they adopted me, and the poodle went after me, and my mom got rid of the poodle.
Oh, my goodness.
I want to thank my mom for sticking up for me right now.
Well, I'm not going to say that my daughter doesn't love her dog, but my daughter just had her second baby. And so that's why I have the dog. Luna lived with me years ago when my daughter still lived here, wasn't married. And she was like both our dog. And then my daughter moved out and she took the dog. And truthfully, I miss the dog more than her. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, you're not.
And so I had visitation with the dog. So I would take the dog every few weekends. And after her first daughter was born, we were kind of concerned because Luna can have a little bit of an attitude. So they did okay together. But after the second baby, my daughter was a little overwhelmed. So I have had the dog for almost 3 months now. And we don't know what's going to happen.
How much do you get paid to watch the dog?
I get love and adoration.
I just took my dog. We use this terrific, like, kind of private kennel near my house, so it's lovely for the dogs. I think they like it there better than they like it at our house. And I know what I just paid her to watch my dogs for 10 days, so I think you are being underpaid. Love is not enough. Oh my God, Nanci, are you paying for the food too?
No, this is so funny, Scott, that you asked that. So Luna, being a poodle, she's had some stomach issues throughout her life. So like I said, she's almost 11. So my daughter, buys her this bougie food from the farmer's dog. Am I allowed to say that? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I don't know. And it is expensive, like almost $300 a month for dog food. And so I was... Yeah.
I didn't know you guys were royalty. Am I talking to royalty?
I know. You would think.
Oh my gosh, that's lovely. Do I curtsy to you? Are you a queen? $300 a month to feed your dog. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
300 times 12. I can do this in my head. 6 and then 3. Is it $3,600 a year to feed that poodle?
Yes. I know. It's crazy.
You might think he's not laughing at me. But I am. Oh my God.
And I mean, so that was like one of the things I was like, we can take Luna, but her bougie lifestyle is above my pay grade. So you're going to have to continue to pay for the dog food. So she still pays for the dog food.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you something. We're going to get to your type 2 diabetes in just a second. Okay. But I remember gestational, the whole thing. I got it in my head. Don't you worry. We had to take a trip to see our kids, right? And I have 2 dogs. Indy is old. Like, I'm not kidding you. He's 15. Like, Indy's the kind of old that, like, when you wake up in the morning, you stare at him to see if he's breathing. And when he's breathing, you go, huh, no kidding. Like, it's that he's that old, right? And then Basil's like 7 or 8, which I guess is getting old. But he's pretty much like luggage. You could just pick him up, put him down somewhere else. He exists again. I think his brain's the size of a walnut. Like, he's fantastic, So our kennel says, look, Indy's too old. He can't come here anymore. We have to find another kennel. All right, I understand. we only use this place like once a year. So it's not like we're great business for them or anything like that. Just, too much to watch Indy at his age. And so I find another kennel that's like, don't worry about him being an older dog. We have no trouble with that. I'm like, oh, that's terrific. Thanks. We drop him off. Now here's the play. I'm going to drive to Atlanta with my son. And the next day, Arden's going to drive to Savannah, or what am I supposed to say? Where does she go to school? Chicago. I think that's what I'm supposed to say. And okay. Kelly's going to drive to where Arden goes to school. So I leave a day before. I am halfway to Atlanta when my phone rings and the kennel says, hey, you got to come pick your dogs up. And I was like, what now? Oof. And she goes, and all I could think is, oh God, Indy, like scared them. Like he went into one of his like staring at the wall phases and they were like, uh-oh. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she goes, Basil won't stop knocking his water over. And I went, oh, that's easy. Just don't give him water. I was like, because I'm in self-preservation mode at this point. I'm like, no. Like, this isn't happening, So no, she goes, no, listen, we tried doing this. We tried giving him a bucket. We tried tying the bucket to the cage. He flips it over immediately. We can't leave him here without water. And I was like, sure you can. He'll be fine. And I was like, I mean, not forever, but like give him water with his food. He'll drink it and then he won't have it the rest of the time until he eats again.
Right.
No, I can't do that. I'm like, I mean, that's what we do at our house, but okay. I'm like there's not always water in a bowl. Like there is, but not always. I'm like, I can't talk her into it. So now I'm calling my wife. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so I call the woman back again. I try to talk her out of it. And in the midst of trying to talk her out of it, I say to her, listen, I can't. I was like, here's what you're going to need to do. Let him outside. If Jesus wants him to find us, when he comes back, if he comes back, when I get back from my trip, whatever, I'll go to the woods where you let him out and I'll call his name a couple times. I'm like, if he comes back, then God bless. And if not, I'm like, I have no other options here. I can't, I'm like, deal with this. And she's like, no.
Oh my gosh.
Out of nowhere, Arden goes, we just bought that new water dish. Like, I want to be clear. Basil's never flipped his water bowl over here at my house ever once. Never. But we had just recently gotten this water dish that didn't allow for sloshing because Indy's messy when he drinks. And it had little rubber feet on it. And Arden and Kelly ran that over to the kennel, put it in there. Basil looked at it. He was like, oh, this is cool. And he left it alone. And that was it. But I was willing.
I was like, you were committed.
Let him outside and we'll find him or we won't when we get back. And I didn't really mean that, but I was out of options. You know what I mean? Anyway, dogs are a pain. People shouldn't buy them. They're lovely. But
they are. They're the greatest companions and they are like so sweet and fun, but they're a lot. They're a lot.
No, I would have abandoned a child if somebody told me I had to drive back from Atlanta.
Right?
I was like,
you would have been like, sorry, drop her off at the bus station. We'll see you whenever.
Oh my God. So now, this last time we left them, Indy's so old that the person says to me, I have to ask you, like, if he passes while he's here, what do you want us to do?
Oh.
And I was like, well, call the vet and, I'll work it out with them, what we would do and everything. And she goes, would you want us to call and tell you? And I didn't hesitate. I was like, yes, of course. And I said, is that a question? She goes, a lot of people ask not to be bothered on their vacations if their dogs die. And I'm
no
like, well,
way.
Those people are monsters then. like, yeah. And if you're listening and you've done that, you're a piece of shit. And so it's a very easy thing to come down on the side of. I was like, no, please, if anything's wrong with my pets, please call me immediately. I might tell you to let them outside, but I want to know.
I do want to know if they passed. Yeah.
Unreal.
Wow.
So she told me a lot of people say that. Like, if he dies, don't tell me. We'll find out when we get back. I'm like, I don't know where to fall on that one. But anyway.
That's extreme.
Yeah. Speaking of extreme, tell your daughter I said she's out of her fucking mind. Okay.
I know. No, you're not the first, Scott. Believe me.
No, there are tens of thousands of people listening right now going, that girl's crazy. So anyway, very nice that she would do that for the dog. You get gestational diabetes with your second kid. during the pregnancy, which was a long time ago. Because how old are your children?
So the one that I had gestational with is 31.
Wow. So that was 31 years ago. Gestational diabetes. I was confused about something. People are going to be like, I don't know how Scott did this after this long tangent about dogs. But I remember you saying they were giving you trouble about your weight. Was this during your pregnancy? People were
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I had already had severe insecurities about my weight. I had that pretty much through my whole life.
Look, I know I went on and on about dogs there for a while, so I'm going to make this ad quick for you, but I had to leave that part in because it pays off later. You'll see. ContourNext.com/juicebox. The Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter is available at my link. It is incredibly accurate. It is easy to use, easy to hold. It has a bright light for nighttime viewing, and the screen is simple to understand. ContourNext.com/juicebox. Why am I going to the link while I'm talking to you? Because I want to walk you through it. There's an orange buy now button on the front page. When you click on that, you go right to like 8 different opportunities to buy the Contour meters and test strips right now online. CVS Pharmacy, Walgreens, Amazon, Walmart, Rite Aid, Target, Kroger, Meijer. It's all right there. Plus, there's a ton of information on this page. For instance, did you know that you may pay less in cash for these quality, accurate meters and test strips than you're paying right now for an inferior product through your insurance? Just because your doctor gave it to you doesn't mean it's a great meter. ContourNext.com/juicebox. Check out the meters and those second chance test strips. They really are fantastic. ContourNext.com/juicebox.
And I did gain a lot of weight. I mean, I'm only 5'2", maybe 5'3" on a good day. And I was upwards of over 200 pounds when I gave birth to my first daughter. And then again, upwards of over 200 pounds when I gave birth to my second daughter. But I had gained a lot of weight rapidly at the beginning of my second pregnancy. And the nurses, when I got on the scale, would just give me like this shocked look that they couldn't believe that I gained that much weight. And one nurse even said, "Are you having twins?" And I was like, "No, not that I know of. Just big." And one of the funniest stories, it's funny now, it wasn't funny then, but one of the funniest stories that I ever tell people, when I was pregnant with my second daughter, she was born right before Christmas. And so I was at a mall with my mom trying to get all of the Christmas shopping done before she came, because I knew she was going to come and then I wouldn't be able to go and do all the Christmas shopping. And I mean, I was huge, and I was standing outside of the store waiting for my mom, and a complete stranger walked up to me and looked at me, and she said, "You are the biggest pregnant woman I have ever seen."
Oh, Merry Christmas.
I know. Yeah. And oh my goodness, I immediately started just bawling. And my mom came out and she thought I was in labor, and she was like, "What is happening?" And I couldn't even talk. I was so upset that this woman would say that to me. But yeah.
Wow. Hey, Santa. Wait, what? No. So when you said you were over 200 when you gave birth, what were you when you started, like on the day you got pregnant?
So with my first daughter, I mean, I was probably only about 125 pounds. Wow. So I probably gained a good 75, 80, 85 pounds with my first pregnancy. And then
was it mentioned to you during your first one? Doctors say, "Hey, we're putting on a lot of weight here," or "I'm uncomfortable with," was there ever any conversation about that?
No.
Did you feel that way?
I mean, I did. I did, because I was very aware of how big I was getting. And I felt huge, and I knew that I had gained more than what normal, I guess, regular pregnant women to me seem like what they gain. But yeah, in my first pregnancy, I never remember them, meaning my OBGYN or the nurses or anybody, saying anything. I don't know if it was because I was so young. I was only 23 when I had my first daughter. So I don't know if maybe it was because I was so young, and maybe not that I was that much older. I was 25 when I had my second daughter. So, but I didn't lose all of the baby weight from my first daughter when I got pregnant with my second daughter. So I probably was about 150 pounds when I got pregnant with my second daughter. And again, was probably, 210, 211 when I gave birth to her.
Did they look at your blood sugar during the first pregnancy?
I believe that I did have the, 3-hour glucose test during my first pregnancy, but I can't totally remember, because it was a long time ago. And, I was young and I don't really remember. I definitely remember with my second daughter having it and not passing,
Red
I
flag.
guess,
Yeah.
And I had the same OBGYN. So I'm not really sure why it seemed like a different experience, but, he would just kind of ask me what I was eating. And then when I would say what I was eating, he'd say, are you crazy? You can't eat that. You're going to kill yourself and your baby. And I was like, what? I just remember not understanding really what they were saying.
Did you, Nanci, feel like you were eating more food than was reasonable?
I don't think I was, to be honest. I think I probably overindulged in some stuff.
Okay.
But I do think I had I ate the wrong things. I ate pasta and bread and heavy carb food, which I know now, but back then, to be honest, I really didn't know. I remember, when I was younger, I always just thought sugar made you fat or sugar made you have bad things happen to you. But I'm half Italian. And so, we eat pasta and bread and
can I ask also, I mean, this is 31 years ago. So, a while back. Was there any that oh, I'm pregnant, I can eat whatever I want now? Did that used to be a thing? It was, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You're eating for two. And I mean, most of my family members felt that way and thought that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of the message.
Yeah. Go ahead. You can have it.
Yeah. Wow. So when you are diagnosed with gestational in your second pregnancy, how do they manage it?
So the only way that they managed it was by having me diet. They just said I had to eat a better diet and that I couldn't have bread and pasta and to eat a lot of salad, vegetables. And that was it.
Did that work? Did that move your blood sugar down?
I mean, I know that when I would go to my doctor's appointment and they would test my blood sugar, they would say, oh, it's a little high. But again, I kind of remember one time, I think it was 155. But, and I was like, is that good? Is that bad? And really, it was so strange to me. Now knowing what I know, it was so strange to me back then that they didn't educate me at all. It was, you would think I was living in the 1930s in some backwood town somewhere that, they were just oh, you're fine. I just remember
her eye fell
not
out,
knowing,
stuff it back in.
Yeah, right. I just remember not knowing anything and
Them
no
not
one explaining anything to me.
Okay, so they didn't give you insulin.
Nope.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
So was the baby born big?
She was huge.
Okay.
She was 10 pounds when she was born.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's so funny because my daughter, who just had 2 children, she's had, I don't know, 7 or 8 ultrasounds, I feel like, with each baby. And when I had my children, they would not do an ultrasound on you unless they really thought there was something wrong.
Yeah.
It wasn't a normal thing that you had done. So I remember about 2 or 3 weeks before I was due, my sister-in-law had actually just had a baby, and I was at the hospital visiting her. We had the same doctor, and I had been sent for an ultrasound, and I was sitting in my sister-in-law's room. I had had the ultrasound, went over there, and my doctor came in, which was her doctor as well, completely ignored her and looked at me and said, "Do you know how big your baby is? You need to go over to the office right now so they can schedule you for a C-section." And I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, I went over to the office and they scheduled me and brought me in for the C-section. And when they did the ultrasound, they said that they were reading that the baby was about 11 and a half pounds. But she ended up being 10 because I just had so much fluid.
Wow.
That, she was 10 pounds. She was very big.
So then after you have your daughter, your second child,
Mm-hmm.
how long until, like, do you have type 2 diabetes right away? Or how do you find out about it?
So after I had her, they, had done all like the blood tests and things that they do in the hospital. And my doctor had come in and he was like, it doesn't look like your blood sugar levels have, dropped back down to normal. So I, want you to see your just regular family doctor for this. And I remember a couple of months after I had my daughter, I went for a checkup and they, I had like a fasting glucose done, and my fasting was like 160. So my doctor was like, "Oh yeah, you have type 2 diabetes." And again, they just said, "This is what we want. We want you to be on this diet and we want you to get more exercise and you have to lose weight. You absolutely have to lose weight." And so that's what I did. I went balls to the wall. I ate nothing but salad and I walked miles and I lost the weight. And when I lost the weight and I went and had all my blood tests done again, my blood sugars were pretty good. So basically that was
Yeah, that's it. You just have to eat lettuce for the rest of your life and walk nonstop and everything will be fine. Okay.
And that's how I thought, Scott. Like, that is what I believe to be the rest of my life. And that just started the roller coaster of me dieting, trying every diet under the sun. You name it, I've done it. Gaining weight.
Can I ask you, is that because you wanted to eat more normally, but you were just searching for something that wouldn't impact your blood sugar?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And I tried everything. I would go 6 months and I would lose weight and I would have good test results. And then after the 6 months, I would be like, oh my God, I need a cheeseburger. And so I would start eating what, quotations normal. I would think I have to eat normal, and then I would gain weight again. And then I would go on Jenny Craig and I would lose weight, and then I would gain weight and go on Weight Watchers. And I mean, it just went on like that for years.
How long do you think?
All the way to when I was, so in 2012, I had a spinal fusion where I had to have my C4 through my C7 in my neck fused. Really, probably just due to an active lifestyle from when I was young, because I didn't really suffer any kind of trauma that would have caused me to have the injury in my neck that I had. So, growing up, little backstory, growing up, I was extremely active. I rode horses competitively. I skied. I rode motorcycles. I was a cheerleader. I ran track. So I was always fit. I was always moving, doing stuff. And in 2012, I had to have this surgery. And after the surgery, the doctors were like, and I had been running prior to that. The doctors were like, no more running. You have to do low impact. You can swim, and I think I just was like, at that point, I just was like, I give up. Like, I'm just, I'm done with all of it.
This running was really helping you with your type 2.
Yeah. And in between that, right. So I was doing like, I went on the diet where like you don't eat anything white. So you don't have any sugar or rice or white potato or pasta. And I was like, champion through that. And then, again, went back to like, oh, I really want to eat bread. And I want to eat this. And then I found keto at some point, and I was like the poster child for keto. I mean, I was trying to sell it to everybody I knew because I lost weight on keto. Mm-hmm. So I was like, this is the greatest thing. You can eat bacon and cheese and still lose weight. It's so great.
Until that one day where you look at a slice of bacon and think, I can't do that again. Right. There can be no more grease that comes from meat in my face. It's unpleasant.
Right.
And so, wow. And through all of this, are you managing with a meter? Do you have insulin? No. Like, what are you doing with your diabetes? So
what happened then was I gained a whole bunch more weight again. Right. And, so years go by with me doing all of this. Right. And then when I turned 50, and I went to my yearly checkup, and I mean, my fasting glucose was horrible. And that's when I got put on the metformin. And, to me, I thought, well, everyone that takes metformin, I don't want to say gets better, but it improves their numbers. And I hadn't been tracking my numbers. I had a meter that did your ketones because I had been doing keto. Mm-hmm. And the meter also came with that you could test your blood sugar. So I remember I was like, oh, maybe I should try this. Let me test my blood sugar. And I tested it, and it was like 211. And I was like, I don't think that's good. And so that's when I started, when I was about 50, and I started looking up and reading and trying to understand and educate myself about what was going on. Also, there's a long history of diabetes, type 2 diabetes in my family. My mom passed away from complications of it. My grandparents both had it, all of my mom's brothers and sisters. And I still, even with them having it back before I was about 50, I never educated myself about it. I never took the time to sit down, read about it, learn about it. And I beat myself up now for not doing that because I know how important it was and that I should have been more aware of what was happening.
So let me ask you a couple of questions around that. So your mother dies from complications of type 2 diabetes. You have type 2 diabetes, and you're in the middle of this never ending like flurry of jumping from diet to diet. And then I guess I'm assuming at some point just restricting your diet so much that it's you're not taking in anything that can impact you at all. And then saying, oh, I can't do this anymore. And then going back to it again. So you're flip-flopping back. At any point during that, are you thinking, I'm going to die like my mom did?
Yes, okay. But only probably a little bit more recent. Recent. I say recent.
Yeah, because how long has this been in context? Like you've had type 2 for how long?
So officially put on medication when I turned 50.
Okay, but that's 8 years ago.
Right. But, between my gestational and turning 50 and all those years and looking at what my blood sugars were each time I would go for my checkup, they were always elevated.
Mm-hmm.
Not in like the 400s, but always like a fasting glucose of 160, 170, sometimes 210, which is clearly not healthy. But yeah, put on medication at 50.
Put on medication at 50. And so it's interesting because 160, right? Like, I think it's interesting to hear that you saw that blood sugar and you were like, okay, well, I guess that's what this is. Or it's what happens when I eat XYZ instead of this. But no, like, not to feel like a pull to be like, oh, I have to immediately stop this. Like I you know what I mean? Like coming from a type 1 brain, if my daughter's blood sugar was always 160, I'd think, oh my God, like I have to do something right now today, like cancel our plans. I'm figuring this out, but it doesn't strike that way. And I've talked to other type 2s as well, who will make these kind of like obvious statements from their life that are just like, to anybody listening, you're like, that's a red flag, but they don't see it that way. And I'm always trying to figure out why that is.
Yeah, I find it so bizarre now because I know so much more. But it's strange because I remember distinctly after my mom passed away, because my mom was sicker than anyone knew she was, because she didn't want people to know how sick she was. And so it was kind of we knew that she had diabetes and high cholesterol and high blood pressure. And we didn't know she had emphysema, and we weren't aware of that. She did smoke, so we probably should have been aware. But my mom died pretty suddenly. She actually came to visit me where I live. And she would stay with me for like 3 months out of the year. And she was here visiting me, and had some back pain, thought it was maybe kidney infection or something. And I took her to the hospital, and 3 days later, she passed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, thanks.
What was the cause?
So she went septic because she had a kidney infection, and her kidneys were only functioning at, I think they said at that time, maybe at like 20 or 30%. And it was, from the diabetes.
Yeah.
And the rest of her, organs in her body had just worn out. And the infection got into her blood, and she went septic, and there was just nothing that they could do.
Yeah. So she had type 2 for how long?
So she had probably type 2 since she was about, I would say, probably 50, 55.
Okay. And how old was she when she passed?
77.
Okay. So in 27 years of diagnosed type 2, what was her management like?
So she was on...
I'm sorry, I know you said she kept it private, but as much as you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, she was on medication. She took... I can only assume, and I know it's crazy that I don't know exactly, but I can only assume that it was something like metformin that she was taking.
Yeah.
And she just... I guess just didn't want everyone to know. And because I lived so far away from her, she lived 1,500 miles away from me. And, when I would ask her, oh, how was your doctor's appointment? She would say, oh, it went well. I did good. So I just didn't know how bad it was. And I knew she took pills because she had prescriptions with her when she would visit me, and she would take them. But from an outward appearance, she didn't seem frail to the point that she looked sickly.
Yep.
She just looked like my mom.
I wanted to share this with you. My mom had some sort of an episode last week where she was having trouble walking, and and I called her about 2 days. I mean, I was talking to her pretty consistently, but about 2 days into this, it is a situation where my mom finds it difficult for her to get like from her chair to her bathroom and back again.
Mm.
I call her up and we're talking and everything. I said, "Mom, how you feeling?" She goes, "Fine." I was like, "Oh, great." And then we're chatting a little more. Then it occurred to me to talk to her like she was 10. "Mom, are you still having trouble walking?" "Yes." "But you feel fine?" "Yes." I said, "Mom, I think we can characterize not being able to walk to the bathroom as not feeling fine, don't you?"
Yes.
And she goes, "Yeah, probably." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay. No, fine. I'm fine. Everything's great. Fine. Great. It's wonderful. Mom, any changes?" "Nope." It's always like that. Never, ever, ever says the truth.
I know. And I do find that I do it too, like, I think I don't want to trouble my daughters with, what I consider to be like a small issue or something. So same thing. They'll ask me and I'll just be like, "Nope, fine. I'm doing good."
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't think it's not common. But I mean, I don't know. It's crazy because look at what happened to your mother, really. Like,
Right.
that idea of not understanding type 2 diabetes, either meaningfully with how to control it with medication or how to control it as best you can with diet, then seeing if you need to supplement with medication, like that whole thing, just not understanding it and not understanding what it does, like just takes her out, like bang.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And even there's language you used around it that makes it clear to me that people are just comfortable with this. Like you said, like her organs just wore out, as if that's a thing that happens. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, your organs just wear out eventually, but when your blood sugar's high all the time, they wear out a lot quicker. And and it's just, I don't know, it's kind of fascinating to me. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. You have something to say, obviously.
No. And again, I do like distinctly remember thinking to myself after my mom passed away that I wouldn't be like that I would never let myself get to that point of leaving my children so quickly and not having a control or a handle on my health. And yet it still happened to me.
Yeah. Tell me then. So through those 8 years, did you, did you have that feeling like I'm going to figure it out?
Yeah. I mean, I kept trying, I kept saying, I can do this, I can get a handle on my health. I can do this. And like I said, I would try different diets and, my daughter got married, so I wanted to look good, and I went on again keto, and I walked and, lost some weight. And right after the wedding, it was, oh, I could have this, or I can just have that. And it's fine. I'm just going to have this.
Yeah. And it fades away a little bit.
Right.
And then the ebbs and flows last much longer than you think they're going to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just remember I just didn't feel good. I had gotten to the point where, like, prior, I think I'd never not really felt okay. I mean, I always felt like I felt okay. And probably, right, I guess, COVID, just like time is like so weird with COVID. You can't remember if it was like, was it before COVID or during COVID? But I think it was somewhere before COVID that I really just started to not feel well and, tired and sluggish and just not feeling well at all. And was so frustrated with myself that I couldn't lose weight. And I came to the conclusion, and it wasn't an easy one, but I said, I'm going to have weight loss surgery. This is what I'm going to do to finally get a handle on all of this, because I just can't get a handle on it, and I need to. And so I started like the whole procedure of getting a gastric bypass, which is a long procedure. Like, I think people think you decide to do it, you go to the doctor, and 2 months later you're having a gastric bypass, but it doesn't work that way. It's a lot of doctor's visits, different cardiologists, dietitians, regular doctor, your surgeon. And during all of that, I had found out, because I had to have an endoscopy done, that I had gastroparesis. And I didn't know what that was. I did know that when I would eat, I would feel so uncomfortable, and I had really bad GERD. I had really bad constipation. And so found that out, and then had some more tests done and found out that I had fatty liver disease, and I was in stage 2 kidney disease.
Oh my goodness.
And
really?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it just blew my world like wide open. I thought, this is exactly what happened to my mom, and I'm doing it to myself. Like, I'm my mom.
How long ago did you discover this?
So, it was probably close to about 2 years ago. That I was going through. And what had happened was I was at this point, I was on metformin, Ribelsis, which is an oral semaglutide, and one other diabetes medication that evades me at this moment. So I was taking 3 different medications for my diabetes. And I went to go have one of my endoscopies done, and my blood sugar was 288 fasting on 3 different medications.
Wow.
And I was just beside myself, because I was like, what do I do? I just don't know what to do. Yeah. And so at that time, my regular doctor was just managing my diabetes. So I had made an appointment to see an endocrinologist. Went to go see him, and he right away said, you need to be on insulin. You're the kind of type 2 diabetic that you're not responding to this. You need insulin. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, and this was obviously prior to me having a gastric bypass, but he put me on Tresiba, Mounjaro, and glyperide. So again, I was on 3 medications, but 3 different medications from what I had previously been on.
He's going for it too.
Right?
Did the Mounjaro help you?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
I would say it was, probably a couple of weeks. But my blood sugar levels were so much better. And, I definitely felt better. There's no question that I wasn't feeling as sluggish. I wasn't feeling that just being exhausted feeling all the time.
It was lowering your blood sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you
definitely,
losing weight?
Yeah.
You losing weight as well?
Yeah, I definitely lost some weight. I won't say, like, I was on the very lowest dose. So I was, started out at 2.5, and then after a month moved up to the 5, and then stayed on the 5 until I had my gastric bypass.
Okay.
So I was on Mounjaro for about 4 months.
How much weight do you think you lost in 4 months?
So I probably lost, I'm going to say, about 16 pounds.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive, honestly.
Yeah.
Did it changed? I imagine how much you were able to eat.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But did it change your, like? I don't know how to ask this question. I guess for clarity, I'm using Wegovy for weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
So Ozempic is a drug just like Mounjaro. Mounjaro, I think, is a GLP-1 and maybe a GLP-2, right? So there's more kind of
right. GLP-1 and a GIP.
GIP, thank you. And for satiation, right? Like and weight loss. So Ozempic, during the testing for Ozempic, they were like, hey, people lose weight on this, whether they have diabetes or not. And they did a separate study, relaunched it as Wegovy. It's the same exact, literally the same exact molecule. And, and I, my body mass made me eligible for Wegovy. And so now I've been taking it for, I think I have 2 more injections left. So it's a ramp up, 0.25, then 0.5, then 1. I think I have 2 more ones. So I guess that makes me 10 weeks on this maybe. And I've lost 20 pounds.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
It's fascinating. Because I mean, I've maybe changed up how I eat a little bit, but not really. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's not like I was eating like pizza and French fries with both hands and now I'm having like a salad. Like, it wasn't like that. I didn't overeat to begin with. I just was a person whose like body, like, I just held on to weight, and I didn't matter what I did. I could diet like my face off and lose, 10 pounds maybe. But then the minute I had anything near even like a reasonable calorie count, I would just start to put the weight back on again. And that is not happening now. Like, not only do I not have, any appetite to speak of, like, you have to literally remind yourself to eat. But I'm losing weight, like, at a very consistent pace. And to say that my blood sugars were not high, but I feel terrific and, much better than I did before. We even went, we were gone like to bring Arden home from college, and we like wrapped up seeing our son in there too. So we were out of the house for like 8 days. I ate in a restaurant for 8 days in a row and was on 2 long car trips, which should be an indication to you that I was not, drinking tea with my pinky out and like having a watercress salad for lunch. And I came home only a half a pound heavier than I left. And once I was home for 24 hours, my weight went right back to where I was.
Yeah. I definitely think that the drugs, the GLP-1s are game changers. There's no question. And I do sometimes think to myself, had I found it sooner, would I have still gone through with having the gastric bypass?
Totally what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know, because I have had really good success with my gastric bypass.
Tell me about that.
And
how much have you lost and in what stretch of time?
So I just had my 6-month checkup from my surgery date. And I am down almost 59 pounds.
Oh my God. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, when I started, I was just about 210. And again, I'm only, 5'2", 5'3". And, some people are like, well, that's not that big, but it is. It's a lot of weight to carry. And, considering not that everyone goes by the BMI standards or what they say you should weigh if you are this tall or this tall. But if you do look at those, I should only weigh about 130 pounds.
Yeah.
And so think about 80 pounds. That's a lot. That's a lot of weight to carry around.
Oh my God, it's insane. I while we were away, I saw something funny I wanted to take a picture of. And instead of just taking a picture of it, I jumped in the picture and I said to Kelly, I'm like, take a picture of me with this. And that is just something I would not have normally done.
Yeah.
And I have more weight to lose, but it's the first photo I've seen of myself where I thought I would show this to someone, like in quite some time. And it's fascinating. Like, it's just fascinating how much better I feel, like, in my mind, even just, because my whole life I was like, I don't understand. Like, I shouldn't be, I've said it on here a million times. I'm happy to say it again. I am the fattest person who doesn't eat that you'll ever meet in your life. Like, I really just don't eat much food. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And they're starting to say now, some doctors, some weight loss doctors are starting to say that maybe, and I should have somebody on to, like, explain this. So just keep in mind that this is like secondhand me cobbling through something here. But maybe there are people with GLP deficiencies, like not much different than a thyroid. Like, so maybe your body's just not making enough, or maybe it's making it and not taking it up for some reason. So giving some of it, like, through a supplement is changing it, because I can't tell you, like, I didn't have a lot, like, I'm not obese. Okay. I guess actually technically I am, but like by the standards that the doctors use and the healthcare uses, but I'm not, like, I don't even know how to put it, honestly. I don't have context for it, but you wouldn't have looked at me and thought, oh my God, Scott's going to die. Like it does, I didn't have that feeling. And the doctor told me when she gave it to me, look, cause my wife started at the same time, and she said, look, you'll probably see weight loss before she does. And I was like, all right, whatever. And she's like, plus, guys just seem to lose weight easier and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. But I inject this and I'm 4 pounds lighter inside of 5 days. Now, nothing about my life changed that drastically. And then, a couple more pounds the next week, and a couple more, and a couple more, and a couple more. And then one day I was like, I weigh 20 pounds less than when I started.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that 10 more weeks from now, I'm probably going to be down 40 pounds. And that's probably about where I'll stop. But it was never going to happen otherwise. Never, ever, ever.
And I totally agree with you that I think that there are people that have that deficiency, and these medications are changing their lives. Yeah. Like, literally, it's changing people's lives.
I felt really sad last week when I saw that photo, and I thought, I wish this would have existed sooner, because I have dodged being in photos with my kids.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm totally with you on that.
I mean, just for that alone made me sad, honestly. I'm happy the medication exists, and I know it took forever to bring it to market. The first inclination of this was in the early 80s with a Canadian doctor who noticed that Gila monsters don't get fat. And
really?
Yeah, and they're not hungry after they eat. And that led to him learning about the GLP and all this stuff. And then I happen to know, because of what my wife did for a living, like a decade ago, my wife came home from work and said, there's going to be a drug one day that you take that's going to help you lose weight. I've seen the early data and it really works.
Wow.
But it's only really been on the market for a couple of years now.
Yeah, because I remember when my doctor prescribed. So, like I said, my primary care prescribed me Rybelsus, which is the oral semaglutide. Mm-hmm. It did nothing for me. Right. Like, I didn't lose any weight. It didn't do anything to my blood sugar. So I don't really understand how the injectable is different, but I guess maybe some people
Nanci,
are more.
I don't either, and I don't care.
Right.
and I've heard people say, like, well, there's no long-term studies on it. I said, there are plenty of long-term studies on me being 40 pounds overweight in my 50s. I know how that's going to go with me having, me having a heart attack is how it's going to go. And, so I'm like, I'm not going out like that. Like, I'm going to fight a little bit here. And you could say, oh, well, Scott, you could have eaten differently or exercised. I tried all that. It didn't work. Like, it just didn't do anything for me. I don't know why. I don't even care why. And,
Right.
it's not important. Like, even, let's say I didn't. I deserve to die because I don't exercise. Like,
Right.
weird decision, And I've said this in another episode, but I'll repeat it here. This is kind of a grandiose thought, but if a generation of parents eat differently because they're on a GLP-1, for example, then a generation of children will grow up not eating poorly because it won't be mirrored to them, right? We got lucky. Like, I'm not even going to lie to you. We got really lucky because my wife and I, we grew up broke. We didn't have any money. Like, we didn't have anybody leading us, telling us how, like, what nutrition was. I'll tell people all the time, like, in the 70s and 80s, like, no one understood what to eat. I know you think, like, that's crazy, but it's not crazy. I made the joke earlier. There's a lemon on the front of, like, a lemonade mix that my mom would give us. And if you asked her if that was healthy, she'd be like, lemons come from trees. But, you know what I mean? Like, come on, like, don't be dumb, And so there was no direction through any, like, that way. I didn't have any direction. Then I had kids, and this is where I'm saying I got lucky. My kids were so athletic and so, like, involved in stuff like that. And we tried really hard to push them towards healthier food, but it was healthier to our understanding. Do you know what I mean? Like, my idea of, like, health was, like, not serving my kid a frozen chicken nugget when he was little. I cut up actual chicken and breaded it. Like, I didn't really know anything about nutrition or health or anything like that. And somehow my kids are maintaining a better style of eating than Kelly and I have. But now suddenly, I mean, I got up this morning, I took 2 mushrooms and 2 eggs, and I scrambled them together in a pan and threw them in a wrap, and I couldn't even finish it.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, this is so much food. And like, so I finished it as best I could. And later today, I'm going to have, like, a salad, and I think I'm going to have some shrimp. I think I'm going to pan fry, like, saute some shrimp and throw it on some greens. And that's probably what I'm going to end up eating today.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wake up tomorrow a pound lighter than I was today. And I'm not hungry. Right. And it's fascinating. And my wife, who I will have on the podcast at some point to talk about it, because she has a much stronger kind of, like, I don't know how to put it, like a mental draw to food.
Yeah.
Right.
It's that voice. Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I said, and I've said about Mounjaro, is that the one thing that I did notice is that it took away the voice of me thinking, before I went to bed at night, what will I have for breakfast tomorrow? And then while having breakfast, thinking, what will I have for lunch today? Oh. And when I go grocery shopping, what will I buy to eat throughout the week?
Nanci, my wife talks about it exactly like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Open your eyes in the morning. What am I going to eat for breakfast? And then wondering about lunch while you're making breakfast.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know that. People call that the food voice.
Yeah. And I definitely felt that Mounjaro took that away from me. Mm-hmm. And now I eat pretty similar to what you just said that you eat. And it is a little bit more because I have to, I have a really small stomach now, so I have no choice and I have to eat like that. But I feel better about myself that I'm making those choices and I'm not beating myself up about the choices that I make.
Oh, I can't agree anymore. Like, that's, to say to someone, like, it's easy to say to someone, well, just have more self-control, right? Like, as a matter of fact, there's a whole industry out there. There's 10,000 podcasts making a living telling people to, like, just be strong, like that kind of stuff, which is very easy for a person who doesn't have what you just described. Like an absolute pinging in your head of, like, what am I going to eat next? What am I going to eat next? Like, that's not a lack of willpower. That's a wiring issue. You're wired
exactly
a little differently, and they don't have great willpower. They're just not wired that way. So it's easy for them, right? Just like everything else, not hard to understand. But yet it gets broken down like haves and have-nots, like the ones who are willing to put in the work and the ones who aren't willing to put in the work. And that's, I think in a great many situations, that's not the case. And even if it was, I'll just say it again, that's not a good reason why your organs should deteriorate and you die prematurely. Like that's
Exactly.
just not okay, right? And so if something helps, like I'm looking back at you and all I could think is somebody should have given this poor woman insulin 8 years ago.
Right.
Right? And now you have real issues now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that way too. And again, I do, I think to myself, how did you not learn about it or try to figure it out? But I trusted my doctors and
how would you know? I mean, honestly, how would you know? You can't look anything you can think of in the world, even with access to the internet right now, because there is that argument. Like I forget what it's like. We have access to more information now than the president of the United States had in the 80s, which is amazing, right? Except everything you wonder about gets monetized by somebody, and then the other side of it gets monetized by somebody else. So there are these two competing arguments. Like you mentioned you were on keto earlier. That's a perfectly reasonable way to eat if you want to eat that way. It's not a problem until someone starts making a living coaching you about your keto or selling you keto food, because now they are going to fight till the end of the earth to defend keto. And on this other side, somebody's out there with their cupcake company being like, oh, these motherfuckers in their keto, I got to sell these cupcakes. And and it's back and forth and back and forth. And now people have become so adept at marketing through, how do I put this? Through everyday interactions. They've become so adept at it that you can get involved in what you think is a conversation with somebody that's really just a marketing ploy. And you'll never know what's happening. And I only am aware of this because I run a Facebook group that is so big. And I've watched people do it with so many different things. They'll do it with t-shirt sales. They'll do it with, we actually literally just had a mob of 6 accounts that were just in there starting what looked like organic conversations about comfortable footwear to sell a shoe. And it was well done. So someone would show up and go, oh, hey ladies, talk to me about comfortable footwear because I have to go on a blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. And then they'd let real people come in and answer. And then eventually one of their other accounts would come in and go, oh my God, my doctor told me about these and they're great. And they put up a link and they were selling those shoes. Then they had 3 or 4 other accounts to come in to prop up the conversation and keep it going. And then when it ran out of steam, they delete it so that the moderators wouldn't notice it. And then they'd come around a couple of days later and do it all over again. And
sneaky.
And it's very common is my point. Like I do stuff, like I have ads, but they're ads. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's not like in the middle of the conversation, I just start like going like, yeah, right. No, that's crazy. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that happened to me once while I was drinking my Athletic Greens. Yeah. like it's not like that. I say, look, this episode is sponsored by AG1. If you want to support the podcast and drink AG1, great. And if you don't, I don't even care, honestly. It helps me. If you're already going to buy it with my link. That helps the podcast. But it isn't me like slipping it into a conversation, trying to like trick you into it. But that's very, very, very common now. And so my long-winded point is it's difficult to get good information when that's not people's goal all the time. Sometimes their goal is just to get you to go buy a thing or do a thing or click on a link or hire a health coach I don't know how you're supposed to figure that out is my point. You know what I mean?
And I am very easily influenced. So I can tell you that I bought a lot of stuff. I bought a lot of keto products, a lot of, workout equipment, different clothing, shoes, you name it. I bought it all.
You were desperate to save your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's terrible. Like, think of it. Thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars?
I mean, I probably, spent a good, I'd say I'd spent a good $5,000 on keto products alone.
That's
buying
enough. That's enough money, Nanci, to feed a poodle for a year and a half. I'm sorry if you didn't see that coming. I was setting you up for that.
That was
Yeah.
amazing.
Sorry. And so, and you got a surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, my assumption was you found the Mounjaro late enough that you were so far down the road for the surgery, it seemed too late to turn back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's exactly what happened. And I was at the point where like I was on Mounjaro for about 4 months and my surgery date was coming up, and I did struggle with it. I kind of went back and forth in my head, and the fact that I was so scared of regaining the weight after either being on Mounjaro for a year or having a weight loss surgery. I knew that the weight loss surgery was pretty permanent. And I did try to, read to see what kind of studies and data there was with Mounjaro, weaning off of it or, maintaining. And there's not a lot of information out there yet about it.
Yeah, it hasn't been long.
Right.
I've come to the conclusion that if I have to be on a maintenance dose of this for the rest of my life, I don't even think I care. Like,
yeah.
And if I grow a tail out of my forehead, I'll be thin as a pin with a tail on my forehead, Nancy.
You will look fabulous.
Oh my God. I'll just accessorize it. I'll start hanging bling from it. I'll be like, that's my Ozempic tail. Whatever. No, I mean, honestly, I don't. It's
and then you can sell things on your podcast.
Oh yeah. Like
Facebook group.
Like, hey everybody, like use Wegovy, and yeah, you're gonna grow a tail out of your forehead, but here are these beautiful socks to keep them warm during the winter. And I'll just thread it into a conversation so you'll never even know I'm selling them to you. Yeah, I mean, there are no advertisers right now for any GLP-1s on the podcast, but I have to tell you, if somebody came along and wanted to, I'd be happy to take an ad for that. But I would also tell you it's an advertisement. But no, seriously, as far as I know, there are no side effects to GLPs that make things grow out of your forehead.
No.
And certainly enough of the world has taken this up that we're going to find out. I think the next thing that you're going to see is doctors who do weight loss surgeries. You're going to start seeing them like kind of chirp about these injections and tell you there's something wrong with them because it's going to cut into their bottom line pretty heartily. Because really, like Ozempic or Wegovy or Mounjaro, what they're doing is they're making you feel full faster, which is what the surgery does. But they also have the benefit of they're somehow impacting your hippocampus. They're literally telling your brain you're not hungry. And there is some newer studies that I don't think are complete yet that are saying that they also signal to your body that during weight loss to target your fat. So,
yeah, I did just read that the other day, which is amazing because that's one of the things that they really watch after you have weight loss surgery is that you lose muscle mass.
Right.
So that'd be amazing if the GLP-1s stop that.
Just anecdotally, but my weight is coming from places that I really struggled to get rid of it from. And so like my example usually is if I would have just started dieting like aggressively on my own, my face would have slimmed down first. And then I would have like been like, oh, my midsection is not like changing. And with this thing, it was my midsection first. As a matter of fact, my face didn't start slimming down for like 2 months after that. And yeah, it was all coming out of my chest, my sides, my back, and my stomach, which were the places like I can't even tell you that my stomach and my chest are on the same plane of existence now, which is very new for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway.
Wow.
Well, okay. I'm sorry. I had to bring this back around again. I started having these type 2 conversations because I was finding listeners who were basically like, look, I'm type 2, but I use insulin. So I started listening to the podcast and it was really helping me. And so how are you managing right now?
So right now, only on one medication called Tradjenta.
Okay.
It's an oral medication. And the reason being is because obviously right after I had my gastric bypass, I couldn't eat. it was all liquid. And so I even had a couple of low blood sugar episodes after my surgery. And so I was taken off of everything. And once I started to eat again, and I was consuming some carbs, some sugars, my blood sugar levels did start to go up a little bit. So when I had my 3-month exam after my gastric bypass and I saw my endo, he put me on the Trajenta and said, well, let's see how you do with this. And then when you come back in 6 months, we'll look at your blood sugars. I wear a Libre too. So I monitor my sugar. And I have had some instances where if I eat something more carby, my blood sugars have gone up. A couple of times over 200. So I'm not really sure if I'll get put back on insulin. But we'll have to wait and see.
What are your fasting blood sugars like?
So the last time I had my fasting, it was 121, which is, for me, I feel like really good. Now, do I want it to be 90? Of course. Like,
yeah.
But, and my A1C at my last check was 6.3, which again, for me is really good considering when I went on insulin, it was 8.9.
Wow.
So, it's really, really come down quite a bit.
What do you give credit to here? Weight loss, a change in your diet, and the Trajenta. Those 3 things you think are what's keeping you where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the weight loss and the fact that, I'm forced to eat protein because of the gastric bypass. So you learn that you have to eat protein before anything else. And because I have such a small stomach, I can only eat, like 3 to 6 ounces. And eating eating that in chicken, you get full. And so I'm not eating, maybe if we had mashed potatoes or rice that night, I'm not really eating that because I'm eating the chicken and I'm getting full. And so I'm not eating the stuff that would cause my blood sugar to go high. But I have had a couple of instances where I've, said, oh, I'm going to try a bite of that sandwich or a bite of that pizza. And my blood sugars have gone up. And I'm not sure if that's just my, like my body being like, whoa.
Do you still have your food voice?
No, I don't.
Does your taste for food change?
A little. I have a food voice in that I do have to still prepare, like I can't just be willy-nilly and throw caution to the wind and just hope that there's food that I can eat. I have to be prepared. Yeah. So I do have to think about it in that sense. And I definitely feel like there have been times that I have thought, God, I cut my right arm off for a slice of chocolate cake, like and I don't have the chocolate cake, but I do have that feeling like I really would just want it so bad.
Could you do a forkful?
Could I what?
Could you have like a forkful of chocolate cake?
Yeah, I probably could.
Yeah, but you don't think you would if you started. You think you'd. So it's funny. I can't believe I'm doing, like, I honestly never saw myself as a person who would be advocating for like medication to change how you eat. But I've learned a lot like in these last 10 weeks already. And there's part of me that feels a little sad because you got your stomach made smaller.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you could have gotten the food voice to go away with the medication and you would have felt fuller sooner, that might have helped you regulate the amount and the types of your eating. Because I'll tell you, I made good decision after good decision this week in those restaurants. I was like, I am not eating anything that's fried. I am not eating anything that's, like I stayed away from a number of different things on purpose, and I had a perfectly lovely time. Like at lunch, I had like, I sat down and I was like, can I get a cup of soup? And I think it was like chicken rice soup. I'm like, can I have a cup of that soup and a half of a turkey sandwich? And she goes, we only serve like full turkey sandwiches. I was like, well, if you bring me a full turkey sandwich, you'll be throwing a lot of it away. And I was like, so I'm like, you can do whatever you want. But I'm going to eat half of that cup of soup. And by the way, here's what I want on the bread. Nothing. Just put the turkey in there. And I said, like, 1 slice of cheese. She goes, it's going to come with 2 slices of cheese. I was like, I'm going to be throwing one of them away. And I'm like, bring me a little, like, I think I put like yellow mustard on the bread a little bit. And they brought out potato chips. And I was like, I don't want these. And she's like, well, they come with the sandwich. And I was like, all right. So I had like 4 potato chips. I had like 3/4 of a half of a turkey sandwich and half of a cup of soup. And I was like, oh, good. Like, this is like 2 PM. And I thought, well, that's good. I don't need to eat anymore today.
Wow.
Like, but I could still eat it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
no, and I totally understand what you're saying. And I do get sad myself sometimes and think that if I had given it a little bit more time on the Mounjaro, or if I hadn't been going through the process to get the gastric bypass. And again, it's a long process. So, I mean, you really have to be committed and, to be that committed. And then, at the point where you're going to get it, to say, nah, I think I'm just going to try this over here instead. It just made me a little bit like scared and nervous, because I had felt like I had been on such a roller coaster for such a long time. And I just knew that for me, having the gastric bypass would give me some permanency in my life. Like,
yeah,
I know that sounds drastic, and to a lot of people, it is like people are so put off by the gastric bypass. And I always tell people, you have to make your own decision. Yeah. Like, you have to do what's right for you. But I will say that I have people in my life that I have been pushing to go and get one of the GLPs. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have been like, look, you've been struggling and you're, younger than me, and you need some help. And these medications help. You need to go talk to your doctor about being on this. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of people, Scott, that, they really have like a negative attitude when it comes to getting anything to help with losing weight. Like, they just, like you said before. Yeah. They just think, what's the matter with you? Why can't you just do it on your own? Get a grip.
That's just because we were all parented poorly. But right. I first of all, I've become a drug pusher. I've got two other people in my family have already gotten Ozempic, and they had type 2 diabetes. Like, go get this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, right. Please. And, but your point about not wanting to do it, like, the part that fascinates and like burns right through my brain when you say that is like, they'll say, oh, I shouldn't have to take an injection to lose weight, but they'll have gastroparesis from their type 2 or kidney failure from their type 2 and go, well, that's the cost of doing business. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, no, it's not. Like if you're a person who, for whatever reason, is not eating in a way that leads to health, and you're telling me that injecting something once a week, and I can't tell you how easy it is. Like, I do it on the podcast. It's click, wait, click, out, done. I don't think about it again. I don't even like feel the needle. I don't even know what's happening. And you're telling me if you could do that and avoid a kidney failure one day, that would be a bridge too far. But the kidney failure's not. Like, it's right. It's a fascinating way to think about something incorrectly. Like, I'm not saying it's optimal to have to take a drug to make this happen. But you know what? It's not optimal for a person with, I don't know, bipolar disorder to have to take a drug not to have those issues. But that's the situation they find themselves in. So,
Right.
I mean, is there a phrase, play the ball where it lies? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you don't get to decide. We all don't get to be, 6 feet tall and a muscular podcaster making $9 billion a year telling everybody to try harder. Like that's
Right?
that guy's thing. My thing is, I don't eat much food and I'm fat. Like,
Yeah.
not okay. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
anyway, and then around type 2 diabetes just as well. Like what you hear is, it's why I'm making that type 2 series and why I'm talking to more people with type 2. Overwhelmingly, people think of insulin as failure. Oh,
Yes.
if everything else fails,
Yep.
I'll try insulin maybe. Well, 10 years from now,
Yeah.
when everything else fails, including your kidneys, then
Yeah.
like you're going to think, oh, I wish I would have used insulin 10 years ago. Because I guarantee, Nancy, I put you in a fucking time machine and you're out there looking for it. Right?
Yeah. You don't know how many people looked at me sideways when I said, yeah, I finally went to the endo and he put me on insulin, and they were like, but they just were like, what?
Well, let me say this for you. Fuck them. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I care if you stay alive. They care if you do it their way. Yeah. Oh,
right?
If you don't do it the right way, then what's the point? The point is being alive, you moron.
Exactly.
What in the hell?
It's crazy.
You ever walk around, Nancy, and think, a lot of people can't think?
Yes. Daily.
What is happening? What is happening?
Daily.
How can you get so lost in the wrong part of a conversation?
I don't know.
Let me lay it out for people listening. Staying alive, that's first. Okay?
Yeah. That's the goal.
Every day.
That's the goal.
Every day it's your first goal. Gotta stay alive. Next thing, stay alive and be healthy. Okay?
Yes.
Then be nice to people. Do things, the blah, blah, blah. Work. I want you to work hard. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think that it's a valuable thing. Well, if I ever said this, I assumed this was obvious. But I don't think it's a valuable thing to, eat every horrible thing in the world and think, well, I'll just inject this and it'll counteract it. By the way, that's not how this stuff works. It's not like it makes it go away. Like, I could eat too much food today, my stomach would hurt, and I would probably gain weight. And so like, the drug's not going to stop that from happening. I could physically push through it. Just like you could physically, there are plenty of ways to cheat around the surgery you had.
Well, not really. I mean, you get pretty sick. That's the one deterrent that is a little bit different is,
you haven't heard of people blending down like crappy foods and drinking them and stuff like that?
Yeah. But I will say in my own personal case, and I pretty much know, I've taken a bite of something that it just didn't sit right away. And and your body gives you a reaction, whether it be just like you get really, really hot and you almost feel like a little bit like dizzy. Some people have like, they'll throw up. Luckily for me, I haven't had any of that throwing up thing. Thank goodness.
I'm glad.
But just a really like dizzy, hot feeling of not feeling good at all. And again, a lot of people will listen to me say that and be like, and you have to live your life like that. You're going to be like that for the rest of your life. But, don't feel bad for me. I made the decision and I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it.
How about also the alternative was what happened to your mom?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
it's just, everybody wants things exactly the way they want them. Right. So it's like, well, you should be able to eat whatever you want and be healthy. I'm like, okay, well, that's not working. So,
right. In fantasy land.
Right. So I'm going to, I'm going to go for like anything I can do to stay alive. Listen, you would never, I think good for you that you got the surgery. Like if that's what you wanted to do, man, good for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I say to, other people. And I also say it to, all of the naysayers. It's like, you have to make a decision that's right for you ultimately. And I'm happy for all of the people that are having
Of
success
course.
with the GLP-1s. And again, like you, I feel like, I'm pushing drugs on people, but I have also been like, look, y'all need to get this. It's good stuff. And I answer questions for anybody that has them about the gastric bypass.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for everybody. Everything is not for everybody, but,
Of course.
we're all just doing the best that we can and trying, to be here and live our lives. And I have 2 beautiful granddaughters that, I absolutely adore. And I just want to be around for them and want to watch every moment of their life and be involved in it and be healthy. And so, for me, it was the best thing to do.
Yeah. Plus, someone's got to cover that nut on that poodle food. You know what I mean? We need people working. I mean,
right?
Jesus,
exactly.
what's the dog going to do if you guys die?
I don't know.
Yeah. Trust me, it's gonna eat deer shit out of the backyard. That's what it's gonna do, and it'll be fine. By the way,
probably right.
You let that poodle out of that house right now, it would be fine. It'd be like, I'll find food. It'll be all right.
Life goes on.
Nanci,
She'll be all right.
I really appreciate you doing this very much. It's a great conversation, and I'm trying very hard to, I don't want to say stupid things that people say all the time, like destigmatize and like blah, blah, blah. I just want people with type 2 diabetes to feel comfortable asking questions, finding answers for themselves, and doing something that's going to make a meaningful impact on their life, not something that maybe will help them 8 years from now after they try Weight Watchers, keto, and 19 other things, and then go, oh, by the way, none of that worked, and now I'm starting to have bad health impacts, and I still am no closer to an answer. So, I don't know. It just,
and I totally appreciate the fact that, obviously you started this podcast for type 1, and but I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you have taken the time to talk to and listen to type 2 diabetics and do exactly what you just said, is, erase some of the stigma around it, and make people, feel like they're just not failures. I really appreciate, because I felt like such a failure a lot. And then I listened to a lot of your podcasts, and even though, it is mostly for type 1s, I got so much helpful information and also just learned so much and thought, wow, this world is so big and there's so many people out there. But there's so many people like me. So
absolutely. Well, I appreciate you saying that. I am evolved enough now not to even make a stupid joke when you say something nice about me. My first inclination, the little child inside of me wants to say something very dumb. The first dumb thing I thought to say was, well, yeah, I'm terrific. You don't have to say it. But I just appreciate that it's reaching people and that it's helping people. And I'll say this, like, look, you should be eating better foods, simple foods, like, don't eat a ton of processed food and flour and sugar and all that stuff. And you should be getting some exercise, right? Like, get out, get moving, like all that.
Yep.
But if that's not working, adding something is not some sort of a sin.
Yes, exactly.
And the people around you who, like Nanci, like, ran into, who are going to give you crap about it, I will tell you the same thing. The same thing I said to a mother recently on the show. Mother called in. Yeah, like it's AM radio. Sorry, I had him. Where was I there just now? A mother comes on the show to talk about her kid being like bullied at school, right? And she kind of went with the like, hippie, like, oh, well, you have to understand, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, fuck those kids. I said, try this. And by the way, I heard back from her, and rainbows and hippies worked for her kid, which is terrific. But my perspective, part of my perspective is we don't care about people who don't care about us.
Yes.
Right. So if you need to do something, Nanci, to better your life, and there are people around you who would give you crap about it, I don't care what they think. I gotta be alive. I'll be dead, and they'll be happy with how I accomplished it. Like, what do you?
Right?
What do you care what other people think? I just don't think, I think it's insane. Like if anybody came after me and said like, you can't taking Wegovy is cheating, I'd be like, I don't hear you. Here's what I hear. My chest and my stomach appear to be on the same line. I feel better. I'm moving better.
Right.
My knee doesn't hurt as much. And I couldn't possibly care there's no one that could come to me now and shame me about what I'm doing.
And that's awesome.
Yeah. And by the way, if I do grow a tail out of the side of my forehead 10 years from now, you know what I'll say? I'll go, maybe that was a misstep. But but if I'm healthy and alive, I'd be like, you know what, I'm all right, because I don't know what's going to happen. But I know that men, especially men who are shaped like me and carry their weight where I carry my weight, tend to die of heart attacks. And I also happen to know, because my wife forced me into looking into my birth mother years ago, that my birth mother became despondent after giving me up for adoption, which led to a life of obesity. And it led to her on a table trying to get your surgery. And she coded and died during the surgery in her 40s. Oh, no. That's terrible. Oh, my God. And I can tell it. I feel badly telling it dispassionately because I don't know her as my mother, obviously. So she had a heart attack from like, blah, blah. What am I doing? Like, I don't want that to happen. Like you said earlier, I've got kids and I might have grandchildren one day, or at least, like, and maybe not, but also I want to see what like the iPhone 25 looks like. And don't you want to see if they can put like a nuclear reactor in an electric car? I'm dying to see if that happens. Like I'm trying to stay here. The alternative is it's over. Like, that's it. And for those of you who think like there's an afterlife, that's great. I also don't want to be chubby in the afterlife. Okay. So I'm trying to get this. All right. Well,
Scott, you want to be a svelte ghost.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Yes. That's what I want. Damn it. I want to look nice when I'm dead and floating around the house. You think it's more like Casper or more like embodiment? I don't think it matters, does it?
No, from the movie Ghost, you want to be more like Patrick Swayze.
I don't think I'm getting there, but he's a handsome man. Although his brother, not nearly as handsome.
Really?
You don't know his brother?
I do not.
All right, I feel bad. I believe he's still alive. So let's not go too far down this road. But before we leave, Patrick Swayze's brother.
Apparently, he did not get the good looks.
His name's Don.
In the family.
Okay.
Don.
Okay. Don, God bless you. You're never going to hear this, but Don looks like Patrick, but made out of spare parts. I don't know how to say that.
Well, now I have to immediately
what happens?
Look up Don.
Well, when you really see a super handsome person, and I mean for male or female, a very handsome person, like their eyes, their forehead, their nose, their lips, they all match, right?
Right.
And then Don Swayze looks like at the end of the day, God had about 5 face parts left over. They were all attractive, but didn't go together. And he was like, listen, we got to get out of here. Just stick these on this one and let's go. Right? Like, so he looks like Patrick, but it's not as smooth. He's God,
that's so funny.
By no means is he an unattractive man. And if you only knew Don Swayze, you'd think there's a handsome guy. But you stand him next to Patrick Swayze, and all of a sudden you're like, what the hell happened to that guy? Right? Like, which is unfair because Patrick Swayze looks like, I mean, he's dead, but he was.
But yeah, he's a good looking man.
Very handsome man is what I'm saying. That's all. I just don't think I'm going to get that handsome. I think I'm going to look like me. I'm going to look like Don Swayze when I get thinner. Okay. Yeah, which, God bless. I'd go for that.
God bless. Yeah.
All right. Nanci, I know for sure, you and I had a conversation about weight that most people don't have in 2023, and I loved it. So.
Me too.
Good. I'm glad
it was amazing.
Time. Hold on one second for me. I hope you're enjoying the type 2 diabetes stories. I know I enjoyed talking to Nanci. Thank you very much to Contour for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. ContourNext.com/Juicebox. Check out that Contour Next meter and those second chance test strips. And of course, touchedbytype1.org. Come out and see me on September 16th. It's completely free, and we're going to have a great day. I promise. Hey, if you're just finding the podcast now, you have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, check out Juicebox Podcast, type 1 diabetes on Facebook. It's a private group that's more than its name suggests. We have a ton of type 2s there. Come find out more. If you have type 2 or prediabetes, the Type 2 Diabetes Pro Tip series from the Juicebox Podcast is exactly what you're looking for. Do you have a friend or a family member who is struggling to understand their type 2 and how to manage it? This series is for them. 7 episodes to get you on track and up to speed. Episode 860, Series Intro. 864, Guilt and Shame. Episode 869, Medical Team. 874, Fueling Plan. Episode 880, Diabetes Technology. Episode 885, GLP-1s, metformin, and insulin. And in episode 889, we talk about movement. This episode is with me and Jenny Smith. Of course, you know Jenny is a certified diabetes care and education specialist. She's a registered and licensed dietitian, and Jenny has had type 1 diabetes for over 30 years. Too many people don't understand their type 2 diabetes, and this series aims to fix that. Share it with a friend, or get started today. When you support the Juicebox Podcast by clicking on the advertisers' links, you are helping to keep the show free and plentiful. I am certainly not asking you to buy something that you don't want, but if you're going to buy something or use a device from one of the advertisers, getting your purchases set up through my links is incredibly helpful. So if you have the desire or the need, please consider using Juicebox Podcast links to make your purchases.